With the release of the new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I wanted to print and paint a character from the game. So I decided to ask you guys which character I should do, and the results were overwhelmingly for Tifa, which I'm kinda not surprised. The model I ended up printing is this Tifa holding Cloud's Buster Sword, which was sculpted by CA3D Studios, who also kindly sponsored this video, but more about them later. The first thing I do after printing a model is to dry fit everything together just to make sure that everything fits nicely. And as you can see here, everything fits perfectly and the quality of the model is really amazing. The next step is to sand away the support marks, but instead of boring you with that, let me talk to you about the sponsor of this video, CA3D Studios. CA3D is a Patreon where for $15 a month, you get 8 or 9 models voted by the community itself. Every month, you and other patrons get to vote for what models they sculpt and also choose the main reference for the models. For the month of March, we're getting 10 amazing models such as the Star Wars diorama, Jinx from League of Legends, Lust from Fullmetal Alchemist, and even Princess Mononoke from the famous Ghibli studio. These images are only reference pictures chosen by the Patreon members, and I'm sure they will do an amazing job sculpting them into 3D models. For an extra $5 for the VIP tier, not only will you get the models from March, but also models from the previous month that you can start printing and painting right away. A few of my favorites from last month include this amazing Atom Smasher version of Rebecca from Cyberpunk, and this beautiful Jubilee just in time for the new X-Men 97 cartoon. And for every additional month you are part of their VIP tier, you will also start earning rewards to unlock models from the previous months. And on top of all that, if you're a new Patreon member, you also get 4 additional models from their welcome pack that includes one of my favorite Spider-Mans. So thank you once again CA3D for sponsoring this video. And now let's head back to the video. The first thing I do is to make sure I give all the parts a good coat of primer. With that out of the way, let's paint. My method of painting skin tones is to always start off with some pink. I also purposely leave some areas a bit darker for the shadows. Adding some red to certain places will really help build up more interest and life to some areas. Then I start with my midtones, which is a mix of Fairy Flesh and Medium Flesh from Vallejo's Fairy Flesh set. Tifa has really pale skin, and I kinda went overboard with the highlights with her, as you can see here. At that moment, I thought the skin tone was fine, so I sprayed on some matte varnish and started working on the base. It was only until the next day that I really wasn't happy with how it turned out and decided to work on her some more off camera. As for the base, I'm going with a metallic look since a lot of the environment in the game has an industrialistic feel. I will however give it a bit more detail by adding the black and yellow danger stripes in the middle. To do this, I make sure to mask off the yellow parts with the same width as the black parts by separating them using the same masking tape. And if you've painted before, you know yellow just doesn't go well over black. So I layer some white first before adding the yellow to make sure it's a bright and shiny yellow. I generally don't like masking, but peeling them off is super satisfying. After that, I just give it some light touch-ups and the base is done. Going back to Tifa after I fixed her skin tone, I start painting the eyes with a reddish flesh. Then, I go in with a thinned down ivory for the white part. I make sure to leave a bit of the red coming through the eye, especially on the corners. The eyes, in my opinion, is the most important part of the figure, so really take your time to position the iris in the direction you want her to look. If you make a mistake, as long as you're using thin enough paint, you can paint white over it and try again. Time to do some freehanding for her eyebrows. I always use watercolor when I freehand because when I make a mistake like here, I can always just use water and wipe it off. Once again, I thought I was happy with how her eyebrows looked, but once I assembled the hair, it looked a bit off to me, so I went and fixed it again off camera. So make sure to stick to the end of the video to see the final results. Next is to work on her body. For her white shirt, I start with a pretty light gray base coat, then go in with a pure white from the top. Tifa actually has a lot of metallic parts like her buckles and also her gloves, since her main fighting style is with her knuckles, so I'm using the same metallic paint I used earlier on her base to paint these parts. For the areas that are red, I want them to be more vibrant, so I'm using a brighter silver as the base coat. In Final Fantasy, they use these gems called materia to enhance their skills. I really want them to be extra glossy, so I tried using some UV resin I had from my last video instead of using gloss varnish. For the Buster Sword, I added light coat of dry brush for the hilt just to give it a bit of texture and airbrush the remainder of the sword. The only part left is her shoes, and whenever I can, I try to use a really vibrant color, and this ball red contrast paint from Citadel is amazing. Assembling a painted model might be my favorite part of the whole process. It's just super satisfying seeing the whole model come together. If you've enjoyed my video, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. A huge thank you and shout out to my newest Patreon members, Theo, Kevin Street, and Nurse Joy. You have no idea how much your support means to me. I also want to thank CA3D for sponsoring this video. They really are a group of super talented artists. Go check them out to see if you find anything you like. Let's finish assembling her and head to the glamour shots.